Hey everybody. All right, so I just did a short review on Crossway's ESV Pastor's Bible. What I wanted to do really quickly also is talk about some of the internals. Um, there, there's a reason why they call this the Pastor's Bible, and I just wanted to go over the resources that are inside of it. So there's three different sections for the resources. There's before the Old Testament, in between the Testaments, and then immediately after the New Testament. All right. So at the very beginning, you have an introduction on the ESV Pastor's Bible, just to kind of give you an overview of what was its purpose, followed by disciplines of a godly pastor. And each of these little subsections has some wisdom, as well as scriptural references for any kind of a minister to meditate upon and to reorient oneself on a regular basis. Here's a little section on the Bible's use in preaching and public worship with two articles that talk about that. And then there's two reading plans. So you have a 4-part reading plan and then quite a bit that explains how this reading plan works. This is the plan I'm working on right now, just jumping into to see how well this would work. And then you also have a sequential reading plan that just reads straight through the Bible. And then you have your regular preface for the English Standard Version. And then you have your features like cross references and stuff on how to read that. Alrighty. Now, when you turn between the Testaments, you have this little handy dandy title sheet that kind of walks you through what's going on. So you start off with some invocation, with several different types of invocation, including some from the Psalms, which is really helpful. You have prayers of confession with several prayers of confession that you can point to, as well as announcements of assurance. This one I thought was really cool was the historical creeds and confessions. Well, there's no confessions, sorry. It's just the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, and then you have several scriptural creeds, quote unquote, that you can find throughout the text. What I like about this, though, is that there are several different ways that they give you to kind of brainstorm on how to introduce these in the midst of a worship service. We have a liturgy for baby dedication, a liturgy for infant baptism, and then a liturgy for believers' baptism. Also have a section on communion. And there's two different sample liturgies here for communion. You have one that's really helpful for if your church holds to a remembrance position, that communion is a memorial of the body and blood of Jesus. And then in the sample number 2, this is good for if you view the Lord's table as a sacrament and the spiritual presence of Christ in that. So that's one of the things I really like about the Pastor's Bible is that it's useful for both confessing Christians and non-confessing Christians. So yeah, and then you have 2 wedding liturgy samples along with 2 wedding homilies. And you have something really similar when you look at the funeral service. So you have a sample liturgy along with 2 funeral homilies that are a part of that. Graveside service, liturgy. Yeah. And then some benedictions, both from the Old Testament as well as from the New Testament. And if you jump all the way back here, you have some really handy have some really handy resources here for the evangelist, the worship leader, and the shepherd. From what I can tell, you'd have to ask somebody at Crossway to really break down what these are for. These seem like really giving the evangelist, the worship leader, or the shepherd some good wisdom and some good principles for how to actually fulfill their calling. So for an evangelist, you have kind of a walking through who is Jesus, what is the gospel, how do you respond to that, and what's the result of it. Worship leaders talk about Sunday service, music, and singing. Talk about prayer, corporate prayer in worship settings, and how to do those well, as well as some sample prayers for depending on where you're at in your liturgy. And then for the shepherd, you have things like church discipline, which can be a really hard topic to walk through, some premarital counseling advice, funerals, weddings, pastoral care, the like. So just a real hospital visitation. So there's just a lot of cool, really applicable resources throughout this Bible that make it the pastor's Bible. Now, there's 44 or 40 of these kind of scattered throughout the text of the Bible. These are little encouragements and kind of exhortations to pastors and leaders. As you are reading through the Bible, you'll come across these every now and then that just exhort you to whether it's give your people God rather than giving them your wisdom, or remembering your call. Remember why it is and what it is you've been called to as a pastor. You actually have a table of contents of these that go in page order, so you can actually walk through each of these one by one and read through them. So this is a really great resource. It's something I've really enjoyed using the past few days, just kind of looking at and looking through and stuff. Some little notes on the internals. First off, it comes with only 2 ribbon markers. As you can tell, I've replaced them with my own. That's just a personal preference thing. The ribbon markers that come with it's totally fine. What I love about this layout, though, is that this layout feels like it was designed for a pastor. It was designed for reading. It's a clear text. It's a bold text. You have quite a substantial margin. You have about 1/2 inch in the margins. You have quite a bit of leading as well. If I were to compare this with like an ESV thin line to an All Pros section, what you'll notice is it actually looks extremely similar in terms of layout, style, and everything. The thin line ESV does not have line matching, and that is the same as this. There is no line matching in the pastor's Bible. The paper is extremely smooth to the touch. It's opaque. It reminds me a lot of the ESV Study Bibles paper, where it's thin, and once you kind of break the paper in from the gild and make sure every page actually separates, it becomes very turnable, very usable. You don't feel like you're gonna rip it because you don't hear the crinkle or peeling sound between pages when it's separating from the gild and everything. So this is honestly feels like it'd be a great Bible for writing and taking your notes in, reading from, preaching from, bringing to pastoral visitations. It is a pastor's Bible. It's an all-around Bible that's meant to be beat up. It's another thing that I like about this genuine. I almost said goatskin. It's genuine leather. It's not goatskin. It's definitely not meant to be fancy. It's meant to be used and beat up, and I'm looking forward to beating this thing up quite a bit. So thank you, Crossway, and you guys can pick this up at christianbooks.com or evangelicalbible.com. I have a more in-depth review there as well on the internal. So thanks, guys. Have a great rest of your day.